Thank you very much for joining us on this second webinar on the bilingual revolution and how to create more dual language programs. So my name is Fabrice Jomont, and on behalf of the French Embassy, I want to welcome you to this adventure. Really, it is really an adventure. I'm here with a number of panelists, parents, principals who have accepted to share their views on this topic. So what I will do now is ask them to introduce themselves briefly, and after that I'll give a short presentation overview on a number of steps that parents have taken to create dual language programs, and then also I'll show you a quick video of children, and it's important to hear from the children about why this is important. And then what we'll do after that presentation is we'll have panels. We'll actually do two panels. Panels with parents who have created dual language programs or are trying to create dual language programs, and a panel with principals who were successful in creating a partnership with parents and building new dual language programs from the ground up. And and then after that, we'll take questions from all of you. First, let me hear in no particular order from the panelists. So I will start with Sandra Noyola. Sandy, can you say a few words about yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Jomont, for inviting me to this wonderful webinar. It's an honor to be here alongside my colleagues and parents. And I am the principal of Public School 147, the Isaac Remsen School for Environmental Engineering. And we're located at 325 Bushwick Avenue in East Williamsburg, Brooklyn, New York. And I am the proud principal of the only and first Japanese dual language program in the entire New York City Department of Education.
Maria, you're next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Kod, and I'm a parent of graduating senior already. And I have started and helped create two dual language, Russian dual language programs in New York City, the first ones actually in Russian language. And the programs are very successful, and they're running now, and for many years they've been chosen to be a model program for ours to come and learn how to actually teach dual language programs.
Robin.
Oh, I'm sorry, who? Me?
You, yes, go ahead, Robin.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Robin Sundick. I am the retired principal of PS 84, the Lillian Weber School in District 3 in Manhattan, where we opened our French dual language school in 2008 to go alongside of our Spanish dual language program. So we were one of the very few schools in New York City with both a French and a Spanish dual language program that worked side by side.
Excellent. Jean.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Jomont, good afternoon to you, and thank you for inviting me here today. I am a former principal of the New York City Public Schools with a dual language program, French specifically, and currently I'm involved in a Korean, Haitian French language program in Haiti. It's a pleasure being here.
Andrew.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Andrew Feaster, and I'm a parent that 2 years ago tried to start a dual language program, and life happened, and then now we're in the process of trying to reboot, basically. And in the process, I've started the only Korean drop-off preschool in Brooklyn.
Very good. Sylvia, joining us from Germany.
Hello, my name is Sylvia. I'm calling in from Hamburg. It's nighttime here. I used to live in Brooklyn and helped starting the first German dual language program in Brooklyn. It took us about 2-3 years to get started, and eventually we found a home at PS 18. and it's been growing and phenomenal. And now I work at the International School of Hamburg in Germany, so I'm still dealing with this topic a lot, and I'm proud to be here, and thank you for having me.
Katja.
Hello, well, thank you, Fabrice, for inviting us and for the panel. I am Katia Nicolaou, and I am one of the parents who started the Greek Dual Language Program Initiative. We've been working on that for at least 3 years, maybe more now, but we still are not there. But yes, we hope this dual language program will exist in our community at some time soon.
Talcott.
Hi, I'm Talcott Camp. I was one of the parents who helped launch the French-English dual language program at PS 84, which Robin Sundick was then the principal of. That's on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And so happy to encourage other parents in starting these programs, which are really wonderful and enriching and community building. So thanks.
Excellent. All right, so I will show you a few slides. I will share a PowerPoint and then for a few minutes guide you through some of the steps that parents and educators have taken to build those programs. So this is part 2 of a let me see if this is working. Okay, I'll try again. This is part 2 of a series of 3, where we'll go through. We went last time through the steps that parents undertook to garner enough support in the community and how they were able to get involved and get supporters behind their initiative. Then this session is more about how do you find the right school and how do you convince a school principal about the need and the necessity of building these programs. And then we'll have another webinar 2 weeks from now with what happens when you launch such programs. So let me run you through a few of those ideas, and this is basically the way we structured our panel today. And then just a presentation, those two panels with different angles, different perspectives, and then after that, a discussion with all of you. So questions we've asked ourselves is how can parents make a difference in starting dual language programs in their communities? How can they find the right school? How can they prepare their data and present it in a way that that will be convincing for a school community? And also, how can they build the proposal that will convince the school principal and the administrators and school authorities? So then finally, I want to take you through a larger discussion with how these programs can improve schools and empower communities, and of course, what kinds of advantages do they bring to the children, but also the community at large. The questions that I ask myself is also, what do parents want? And it's important to understand their perspectives. It's for many, it's accessing the main dominant language. Here in the US, it's English. It could be another different context. But that access is tied into the equal opportunities it provides to master the dominant language when you are, let's say, recently arrived in a country. For other parents, including myself, my family is in that category in a sense. It's about sustaining our linguistic heritage. And this is how many parents here are trying to form these groups to get schools to support their desire to sustain their heritage. For many more parents, and that's actually more true now that newspapers are talking about the advantages of bilingualism and cognitive development. This is also something that you hear more, that parents are interested in the cognitive advantages of being bilingual. And then, of course, for many families, this is about professional opportunities, what mastering one or more languages will trigger in terms of economic opportunities. So ultimately, these visions, these perspectives, all want the same thing, which is about creating a multilingual society with more access to languages, language programs, and the cultures behind them. So there are examples that I could tell you about how some of the programs influence and help build strong communities. This is one in Brooklyn where an Arabic dual language program was started a few years ago. And although the history behind it is complex, this school has been very successful in creating one of the rare Arabic dual language programs in the US, and one that serves not only Arabic speakers who have come from a number of countries, and in this case, Yemen, Syria, Libya, but also non-Arabic speakers who are interested in learning Arabic as such an international language that it matters to them. So the parents behind those initiatives, and those you will hear here in the panel, have approached this as a grassroots initiative, whereby they got organized and then organized committees and work together to collect data and inspire as many people as possible, learning from others who were successful in creating those programs and involving all sorts of people in their initiatives. So this is what you'll hear a little more about with the panelists. This is a quote that I wanted to share with you coming from Ofelia Garcia, whom I call La Mama of bilingual education in the United States. She says that this grassroots approach, this bottom-up approach, is about returning the power to ethno-linguistic communities and their desire for the bilingual instruction of their children. So this is how this bilingual revolution is built. It's about returning this power to parents, to ethno-linguistic communities. So I'll show you a few examples, such as here pictures of Anju's groups and the Korean mothers who are trying to change and change not only their community, but also convince others to follow their initiative. I like this picture at the top the most because there is a bridge, and we're in Brooklyn, and you recognize that bridge. But these programs are definitely about building bridges, not walls. Building bridges between communities, between neighborhoods, and between parents and schools. And here, this initiative, and Andrew will tell us a little more about it, is definitely interesting, as many mothers, and something has to be said about the power of mothers, mamas con poder, who are building these programs. Not that parents, not that fathers are not involved, but mothers play a big part. So there are a number of steps to build a strong case, particularly when parents want to convince the school principals. Not only you need to collect data about your community, a number of parents interested in your idea, and you want to present it in a way that is very professional by not only explaining the benefits for the community, for the schools, for the children as well, but also, you want to provide the right data, the demographics. It is good to have a list of children by year of birth and school zones. These are important things that principals, school authorities will require from your proposal. And of course, you need to also show that you have you've done some research on the prospective grants or funding that you'll find outside of your group. And this is something that will convince principals as well, school authorities, that you by presenting and preparing your package, your proposal, you will have thought about finding funds from all sorts of sources. Now, it's also important to bring in people who have been successful in similar initiatives and get their feedback, as well as consulting teachers or other actors who could support your request. And then finally, there's also something to be said about the importance of consulates, embassies, chambers of commerce, elected officials, and foundations. All these peoples can be playing a part in your initiative. So there are a number of steps that I put this in this diagram, but there are mainly three main sub steps here, which is one, you need to know the schools that you are trying to convince, and also need to collect data about each of the schools, and also identify the families that are willing to put their children in that school. And now you need to engage the key players. So who are those key players? Of course, we have the principals, but it's not just principals. There are many layers of people to convince, whether it's through a centralized office or whether it's school boards or community education councils. There's a number of people to talk to. And finally, you have to definitely build a rationale and present it in a very convincing way to show benefits, not only for the school, but also for the community at large. Now, there are many advantages for schools, and the principals here will definitely share their views, but definitely implementing the dual language programs can definitely give a school access to additional funding, if you bear in mind the donors in the community, the foundations, the consulates, the embassies, all these players. It's also definitely a way of getting parents engaged, and many parents in dual language programs are definitely active and engaged. And also, obviously, there are ways, these are you bringing new opportunities for all the students in the school, and this is something that will enrich their experience with that school. This is something to bear in mind. Now, a lot of the talks you read and the papers that are published talk about the performance aspect of being a dual language student, whereby on standardized tests, students from dual language programs outperform students in monolingual programs. So this is something that that you can also use to convince a school principal, for instance. Now, there's definitely something to be said about underutilized schools that will work on these programs, particularly schools with empty classrooms. This is a way of providing a new identity, a new blood to the school. So this is something that you can also use as your argument. And then to some extent for a district, this is always interesting to see that some of these programs are used to relieve overcrowding in, let's say, schools that are already oversubscribed, and then you can move some of that pressure onto an undersubscribed school and transform it. So these are the different ideas, different factors that will boost a school, its visibility, its reputation in the city, in the neighborhood. Some of the programs, and here I'm choosing one that was started by parents 30 years ago in Brooklyn in the Spanish dual language program at Cypress Hills Community. Some of these partnerships that were built were very key to the success of the program. And here the two ladies that I'm showing, one is a principal and the other woman is a parent, and together they share the same authority on the school. They lead the school together, and this is an interesting model, but which shows it's strongly advised to build strong partnerships between principals and parents, as we will hear in the panels. There are a number of advantages for communities, definitely, because not only the dual language programs will increase diversity in the classroom, and there are ways that this experience will help integrate different perspectives, different cultures, different languages. It's very inclusive in a sense. It will also provide access. So again, we're in public schools, so it will provide access to these quality programs to children who perhaps could not afford these kinds of programs in public schools. So this is something to bear in mind. This is why we call it a revolution. We want this to be done in public schools for free and open to as many people as possible. This is bilingual education for all. Now, there are also a number of things that communities will gain from, not only because different players in the communities will be gaining from the experience, and you know, this is a way of breaking down barriers and creating more tolerance and understanding among different linguistic groups. And this is something that these programs have done. And I gave you the example of the Arabic dual language program. This is definitely about building bridges, creating tolerance and understanding, and it's more just than languages. And finally, there are things to be said about not only the implication of parents, the fact that they are actors at the center of action, that they will do everything they can to revitalize the schools and the neighborhood, and you'll hear that from the presenters. There is another example of a Polish dual language programs that was created in Brooklyn, and now that is creating and growing throughout New York City. Polish dual language education has been done through Saturday programs, and now with the help of public schools and dedicated educators and school leaders, Polish dual language education is growing, and it's serving to sustain linguistic heritage in areas like Greenpoint in Brooklyn, where I actually live. There are many advantages. In a nutshell, this approach is about definitely advancing our societies, not only by investing in our linguistic heritage, but also creating our new generations of multilingual citizens. This is for them, we're giving them more opportunities to succeed in life, and the fact that we're placing parents at the center makes a strong case for these programs. Everyone gets to play a part, and for that we need obviously to create an environment that will embrace diversity, the different cultures coming in, our linguistic heritage, and definitely it's key to facilitate this dialogue between parents and schools, as you will hear in a minute. So this is about, this is not about language or just language, it's about respecting each other's differences, it's about building bridges and bridging those gaps that are somewhat found in schools. To conclude, I will show you a quick video from the children, because it's important to hear from them.
I speak two, unfortunately, because all of the languages I learned, I forgot. Yeah, it's French and English. 3 langues. L'anglais et le russe. Хорошо, а у тебя? Tout le temps, je parle en russe dans la classe française.
J'ai appris le français chez moi avec ma mère et mon père qui est américain, il m'a appris l'anglais, alors j'ai un peu appris les deux en même temps à la place de l'une après l'autre.
Je parle l'anglais plus que le français. Le français était mon deuxième langue, pas mon premier, mais ma mère est française et elle m'a appris le français. I'm planning to learn Spanish, and I'm also planning to learn Mandarin. Je lis en français, je lis en anglais. I don't read and write. Well, I'm like very basic, and I don't know how to read that well in Russian. Je lis des livres anglais, mais je lis des livres français. Ma mère achète des livres français.
En ce moment, on lit un livre en anglais après la Deuxième Guerre mondiale.
School's really flexible. They allowed me to follow part of my curriculum as high school. The school offers lots of different classes, great teachers, and I like the facility.
And it's not just like essay or just work. We do more collaborating.
Je pense que c'est une bonne école et en fait au début c'était pas vraiment très connu et après on est venu et c'est devenu vraiment quelque chose de grand grâce au programme français en fait.
I think it's good to hear from the children because we are doing this for them, for the families, but definitely for the children. And in these ones, I think I enjoyed their experience very much. Some are even only complaining they only speak 2 languages, which is funny to hear sometimes. Let's hear from our panelists. I wanted to start with the parents to get a sense of the steps that they took to get their initiatives organized, and then after that we'll hear from the principals. Maybe we could start with the parents with Maria Talcott. I think you started programs at the same time, and I'm talking maybe over 10 years ago now.
13.
13, okay. I think this is time flies. But tell us a little bit, remind us how you organized your group. Let's start with you, Maya, and then Talcott, and then we'll go to the other parents after. How did you organize your initiative in the early steps, and what strategy did you put in place to find the right school?
Okay, first of all, I have 2 different experiences because I started 2 dual language programs in elementary and in the middle school, and that was like different stories completely. So the first one, it was like a fight. So we have to fight for it, even up to the Supreme Court. So this is like not the roadmap that you actually were like telling them before. So why I wanted to do that, because when my daughter was about to go to school, I started to like research like what kind of education, because I'm an immigrant, I don't know how it works here. So I started to research like what's the kind of education I can give it to my child here, what's available. And then I find out bilingual education, dual language. I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. And actually, there was one program in Brooklyn at that time, it started by Teachers College of New York. It was like experimental program. So we actually moved to the area to be zoned for that school so my daughter can go. And we just were like able to complete just kindergarten. And then the old principal resigned because she was very old, and new principal came and he closed us down. And that wasn't part of my plan. And so I started to talk to parents, and parents, they also loved it. They want to continue. So we started to build a group. And then I started to look around, okay, so we want it, but why we can have it? So I started to do my legal research, and I started to search actually the laws. And I found out that we have the right to have it, because we have the numbers, we have the community, we have the children, so we had everything to have that program. We were entitled, we have the right to have it, but administration said us, no, we're not gonna do it. So we had to reach out, we went to like every possible politician like that exists in our like area in Brooklyn, Manhattan, we went to DOE, we went everywhere. So we made a lot of noise, but still administration said no. So then we started to reach out to community groups, to interest groups. So we built a partnership with Advocates for Children. And together we actually were preparing a case to go to Supreme Court. And then that news were like known and DOE, so then they started to talk to us. And when we were able to actually have a program, even the principal was denying, he didn't want to have it, but he was forced by DOE to start it for us. So that was my first experience for elementary school, but everything worked out fine because we didn't want that tension. So I was trying to, like, parents were, like Russian parents were trying to like ease that, because it's also good for kids. We don't want to like be in a school where like no one wants us. So we started like showing that we actually benefit, not the enemy. So we were building like cultural events, and what was really successful because it was like 50 years of the first man in space, and who was Russian, Yuri Gagarin. And NASA and Russian Cosmos, they had like mutual event. Then Russian cosmonauts came to United States and they were meeting with American astronauts. And we already built some relationship with Russian consulate at that time. So we asked them for help, and they were actually lend us cosmonauts. So, and we brought them to the school. And we brought American astronaut. And that was like really like melting like point, and like, you know, people start. And that was very important, that Russian and Americans work together in space, and we showed that. And after that, like, you know, we started to build actually relationship with the principal and everything, because everything, it was like a turning point. So after that, we were welcome. Everyone loved us. Everyone loved the program. They started to see the benefits, because like we all know, like kids who actually do the language, they outperform. So those numbers started to come up. So the principal was really happy, and he became the first principal in the East Coast that hosted Russian dual language, the first one. So he became a star. And so that program became like really, really successful. It was named one of the best, and it was been named like for many years one of the best dual language programs in New York City. So after that, I started to think, like, my child was like in the 3rd grade, like, so what's next? So I started like looking around. I was like, because we love it, we really started to see the benefits of that, the beauty of that. So I started to look around, but then again, like, where to go? Because actually at that point, middle school, there was no such a thing as dual language in the middle school. I was actually the first one. And you told me yourself, Fabrice, that I was even like a year ahead of you in that initiative. So really didn't know what to do. I also like did a lot of research. I was like reaching out, because at that point I already knew a lot of people in education. So like how, like where to go? And my first idea was to start charter school, because I didn't really know how to actually manage and create like middle school, because it's never existed. So, and then at one point, one of the parents tipped me that there is this new principal in the school and the neighborhood. The school is like really bad rated. No one wants to go to that school. It's like classes are empty. But the school got new principal who want to change that. So then I took a group of parents and we went to him and we introduced him the idea how we can help him to change his school, and how he helped us to actually, like, you know, create the educational program for our kids. And first he was confused. He didn't understood what we're like talking about. But it took us like few meetings, but we were persistent. We like made another appointment, came again, and like trying to show the beauty, you know, to bring him some research numbers. Actually telling that already like a program exists in your like neighborhood school, so you can come, you can see. He actually sent some of his teachers to the school to see how it works, to meet the children. And he said, yes, I like it.
But this was more positive than the
Yeah,
first experience. And
yeah, the
let's
first one, yeah.
we'll go back to this successful story, but it's good to hear the steps, and for many programs actually it's not an easy track.
Yeah.
And we have in the room other experiences like that. But let's hear from Talcott and see how she went about with her initiative and what were the original steps, and did you encounter what Maya describes and the legal difficulties she had to go through?
Not at all. I would say what my experience helping launch the program, the French English dual language program at PS 84 in Manhattan, was yes, you know, it was a bumpy road and it was difficult. It was a lot of work, but we had exactly the opposite situation with locating a principal and locating a school, because Robin Sundick, who's another panelist, was immediately just open and enthusiastic to the concept of adding another dual language program. She was extremely proud and supportive of the long existing Spanish English dual language and very excited about adding another one. And I remember her saying, as a way to explain the philosophy of the school to parents, the more languages you can teach children, the better. English and Spanish and French are languages. Music is a language. And she was very, insistent on having a strong music program, being a musician herself. So that was a dream philosophy to find in a principal. And so, whereas, there's no set typical way that parents, help to launch a dual language program, but I think it is often the case that you have a critical mass of parents whose kids are native speakers of the target language, whether it's Russian or French or Japanese or Arabic or whatever it is, right, in this country. And then they're looking for a school and a principal that will be open and inviting and successful. For us, it was the opposite. We had a tiny, tiny number of families whose children were native speakers of French or truly bilingual, but we had the dream school. So with this support from the principal, our biggest work in the unbelievably tight time frame in which we launched a French English dual language kindergarten and a first grade, it was under a year. It was, I'm getting exhausted now just thinking about it, but our big task was to bring in families whose kids were native French speakers or truly bilingual, truly fluent in French. Because in the model of dual language programs that we were launching, you had to have a critical mass who spoke the target language fluently, and they could also speak English or not. And the idea was that the folks who spoke English, the kids who spoke English, would help the non-English speakers learn English, and the kids who spoke French would help the non-French speakers learn French. So our big task was convincing the Department of Education, bringing in teachers who could fill both those slots, the kindergarten and the first grade slot, and then just bringing in parents who spoke French, whose kids spoke French. That was our big task. And so it's a little bit flipped from some people's experience, right, where they've got a critical mass of the families and then they need to find the school. We had the school, we had to find the families. And we were reaching out to Francophone radio stations and bakeries and restaurants and community groups and preschools, everything we could do. We went out with flyers and emails. Everything we could do. When I was checking out buying my groceries, if the person ringing me up was speaking French, I would start accosting people. I would talk to people on subway, on anywhere and everywhere. And we even had little cards made up, and I had my cell phone and other parents' cell phones and this email address we had set up just to talk to people about French English dual language. And we ended up fielding questions from people who weren't even necessarily coming to PS 84, but to other parts of the city. And it was terrific and exciting and really a lot of work. And so our partners were super important. Fabrice Chaumont at the French Embassy was just an incredibly strong partner who also helped us communicate with the Department of Education. There were issues to work out, like visas for one of the teachers who would come from France, who moved from France. And that was really, really difficult. And she would not have made it without Fabrice's help, for which we're eternally
You don't
grateful.
have to say all these things, you know.
Okay.
But thank you. But thank you for saying that.
But anyway, so another important partner was EFNY, E-F-N-Y, E-F-N-Y, French Education in New York, Éducation en Français à New York, which was a group of parents dedicated to French English education, dual language programs, and also after school programs. And they also had prior experience opening one other dual language program in Brooklyn, PS 58, and they were enormously helpful. Basically, you know, technical advice. Here's how you do it. Here's how you go about it. And I mean, really, you know, over the years, we put together a roadmap of how to create a dual language program, and Fabrice has really taken over that work, and this is the continuation of it. So partners, super important. And I think the most important issue is a supportive, strong principal. There are other ingredients you have to have, but if you don't have that one, you can have all the others and it will still fail. So find your principal.
Sylvia, does it ring a bell? Did you have a similar experience? And did you have a school in mind? How did you find a school?
Well, when I jumped in, maybe I have to start. I met Fabrice's wife, who told me about bilingual programs, because I didn't have even children in the school age yet. We were still talking about baby clothes. And I didn't know what the DOE was, what a district was. I had no idea. And she only told me, well, my husband can send you a PDF. And I basically got the information that you were just sharing, because he had nicely put it together. And I never questioned the roadmap. I thought there's just one way to do it. And being German, I just followed the guideline. It said, like, get the people together, put a list together, find a principal. And I took it as a go-to. Well, it was a draft that I just followed like a military person. And so we did it. We didn't know which district we were actually going to, because we didn't have the base. Our biggest concern was the English language learner topic, because I think the DOE finally realized, well, this is a number we have to look into. A lot of parents have convinced us to start it, but then they didn't bring the numbers that we need to actually have a legal base. So we were playing around in different districts, talked to everybody. And I think, well, Maria said that in the beginning, I think there were all these tipping points, these moments, these momentums, these changes or milestones. And I think one of our key milestones, well, the first one I think was our kickoff meeting. We just got all the Germans together that were kind of interested and had children born in consecutive years, because we figured it's necessary to show that we just don't have one group of children, one cohort, but that there are lots of cohorts coming after, so we can show continuity. This was a big word from the DOE. You have to show continuity. So we all gathered and built task forces and groups, but the interests were split. In Brooklyn, people wanted to have it in District 13, 14. So I was like, okay, we cannot take a decision yet. We all have to pitch against each other. So we were having internal competition and started putting lists together, and everybody tried to fight for their own district. However, we used all the numbers. We compiled the data of everybody, sorting them by district, but that showed the amount of potential students that were actually in Brooklyn, eager to learn German or continue with the German bilingual education. Another challenge that we had was that we were not considered a group that needs bilingual education, because most of the Germans already spoke English, so there were not enough English language learners, as I said before. So we had to fight this, that we are a very privileged group that they could get this anywhere or in private schools. And so we took the roadmap as it was and pushed it through. However, I think I want to support the fact that you need a driven principal, somebody who really supports that, because we didn't have a school in mind. So we figured the best thing is to ask the DOE, what school has the capacity, what school actually has the space to host us, And then they came back with one school, but that principal didn't want us. It was too complicated, too much work, too stressful. However, they put this task on him. He had to deal with us, but we just failed. There was no interest, and if the principal doesn't support and drive it, then you don't get anywhere. And then we put a lot of pressure onto the DOE and said, like, okay, guys, we now showed you that the Goethe Institute is behind us, that the German embassy is behind us, that we have big German corporations that are supporting us. And if you do not give us a school now, we just call it off. That's it. And we were threatening them at one point. And a miracle happened. A week later, we had a new school, and with a very motivated, ambitious, warm-hearted principal, and the open houses grew. We were able to show things, and we just got there. However, unlike the French or other languages, we didn't have any teachers. We still are kind of challenged with the curriculum, but we had to continue, we had to fight, and we never gave up. And I think this is the key thing to know and keep in mind. We will need a lot of time. You need to have to continue and move walls. It's not going to happen without you.
I want to hear from Katja and Anju, who are at this moment, at this point that you're describing. They have been working at it for 2 years, 3 years, and they're still trying to find the school, the principal who will embrace that. Katja, do you want to say a few words about your
Yes, I started with Natasha. We are two friends who raised bilingual children. Our children don't go anymore to elementary school. They are old enough, but we knew very well the value of bilingualism and how important it is to sustain the language throughout these years and through their education. And Natasha had a bilingual program in her children's middle school. And that's how we started discussing about it. And then we did almost everything that someone can imagine that is needed to build a bilingual dual language program. What we did a website, we made an outreach, we reached in all boroughs of parents to see the demographics and where is the most interest, which place has the most interest, where are the most students. We even reach out to teachers, bilingual teachers. We reach out to embassies and to community organizations, foundations for support and for enrichment support, libraries, books, and even for teachers. We even got the support from the Cyprus Educational Institute to help with teachers, to help with the teachers programs, how to teach Greek to students in a dual language setting. So more or less we had everything ready where we would start looking for a school. And we found out that in Astoria, even though we had many students and parents in other boroughs, Astoria was the most accessible place, and that here we had most of the students who were truly bilingual. And I put this in quotes because in the Greek community, we all try to sustain our language. So even in Greek American second generation families, they always start with Greek in their families. So by the time students are 3 years old, children are 3 years old, they all speak mostly Greek or only Greek. And then once they go to pre-K for all, or 3K for all, then they start speaking the English language. So the thing is that by the time they are in kindergarten, when these programs are starting, our students, they speak Greek very well, but they also speak enough English not to be identified as English learners. And here is where we hit the low obstacle. So we started looking mostly in Astoria. We found a couple of schools. We were looking for accessibility, as I told you. One thing that in an area where from all kinds of boroughs it's easier to come, from Manhattan or from Flushing, or where we had the most students. And the other thing that it came out to be important at the end, it was that the school had a policy to could accept out of zone students. I mean, they brought that as a problem that the school should be able to accept would be an out of zone school. There is a term like this, when the schools accept not only zone students. One principal was especially enthusiastic about it, and she embraced all support we found, and she was enthusiastic to start building the program. But we hit other problems with the superintendent, the district superintendent, and once the district superintendent brought obstacles, then the DOE also stepped back. While in the beginning, in the DOE, it had a good attitude, you know, a good, we had supporting the DOE. We had people who really understood that it's a good thing to have this program in Astoria. But once the district superintendent said no, then everybody else stepped back, and then we had to go into a fight, as Marianne described it. So we had many meetings with the DOE, one after the other, and they were asking us more and more, and then you have to pay. Even at the point we even heard you have to pay for the teachers, you know. So in a way that it could be impossible to make the program. After a long time of back and forth, then the executive superintendent decided that he will do something about it. So he created a committee where we would also participate, and two English language learners, officials who would be Greek, would also speak Greek, and someone who would be a coordinator. We would form a committee and then look around for the right school according to their opinion and what we can do with a program to help the Greek community, but they didn't want to call it dual language program. So we were at the process on this special committee where we are still discussing how this what phase, what form this program would take. And of course, we were insisting that it has to be a dual feature in the program, not just 1 hour a day Greek, let's say, but it should be at least one other. That's what was our ideas that we brought on the table, that it should be at least 1 other hour that should be taught in both language or alternate.
Very good. So your fight is still going. That's what I
Our
say.
fight is still going. Now is the coronavirus pandemic, so
Sure.
everything is tough, and we'll see.
Let's hear from Anju, because I think the fight, although different, is still ongoing with the Korean dual language program.
Yes, we started about 2 years ago by another Korean mom. Her name is Nari, and she spearheaded the project. And we were both pregnant at the time with our second children, and she had her baby, and she had gathered a few interested families, and we had started meeting, but it was very hard. As we all know, we have children, and it's hard to have a regular meeting. We were in the process of compiling data on how many Korean population there are in Brooklyn, whether it was viable to start a dual language program in Brooklyn, as in if we had enough families to get the DOE interested. And after that, people, I guess, life just started happening. She had her baby, and the group dismantled. And about 8 months ago, I started looking into it again to try and reboot the Korean dual language program group. And so right now I'm trying to build a community back up from scratch. So I've been looking at different ways to get interest. Like one of the moms says she was putting up flyers. That's what I started doing, putting up flyers, posting on Park Slope Parents Group, which is a huge parents group in Brooklyn. Where else? On Facebook, word of mouth, and putting up flyers in post offices and restaurants and bookstores. And I think, and also I tried to start a Korean story time in Brooklyn, because it doesn't exist in Brooklyn, to see if to get a sense of what the interest would be, and to also build a community. I figured that would be a good way to meet other interested parents and build a community. And then the coronavirus happened. So I guess I'm trying to, whatever small community that I have started, we're keeping in touch, and we're trying to reboot again.
I want to include the principals in this conversation before hearing from the parents again, because I think they have some interesting perspectives. Maybe from Jean first, and then Robin and Sandy. What are some of the advice that you could give parents, particularly when they approach you with their project like this? And what are some of the things that you'd like to hear from parents, or how do you build those partnerships with parents, particularly at this stage when they knock at your door and say, okay, how about this? How about we do this dual language together? George, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, let me begin by saying that it really saddened me to hear some of the struggles that parents who are here today had experienced in bringing a dual language program to their schools or in their neighborhood. Fortunately enough, Talcott spoke on an issue that was very positive in her case in terms of her relationship with that principal. But I must also say that on behalf of many principals out there are many of us who cherish the challenge of bringing the best education to our youngsters. However, it takes work in the making. To start with, parents need to know definitely a bit more about the leadership of the school. I would say that there are many missions out there. At times, there could be an opportunity for lack of communication to really get the principals on board. But nonetheless, they need to be challenged whether they like what is being proposed or not. But if we are both fighting for the benefit of our youngsters, we want the children to be exposed to the right type of education, we need to work together, parents, principals, or administrators, to make that happen. So I congratulate those parents in their struggle. And what I come out of, from what I'm hearing, is the levels of advocacy to bring the proper education for their youngsters in their own neighborhood schools. I find myself in line with these parents who are seeking for the best for their children. I have been fortunate in my years of working with the Board of Education that when parents comes to my door, we have a decent conversation to make things work for students. I have been perhaps the one who brought a dual language French program to a school where the building where I was assigned needed a facelifting so that it could get itself on the right track. For that reason, when a group of parents came to introduce the notion of the type of education that they needed for their youngsters, we were already in line to make that move a positive move. They knew the mission of the school where I was. They were very active in attending our PTA meetings. They were never absent. They were there. I hear their comments. They hear what was driving the school to the level that we wanted to reach at. And I would say there was a marriage of ideas, marriage of hopes to make things better for children. And we took these positive vibes and jumped with it. So parents ought to continue the struggle, but the principles can be broken into to make things happen.
Robin, let's hear from you, because you were had the head of a school which had two dual language programs, a Spanish dual language program and a French. And how did you build those partnerships with the parents? And then one of them is here actually. So how was that put together?
Well, I was very happy and very thrilled. I had the dream team. Thank you, Talcott. And then the group of parents that approached me back in 2007. First, I would also like to applaud all the parents who are on the panel today, listening in today, who are all in the throes of either starting a dual language program or already involved in the dual language program or thinking about one in the future, because as you see and you can hear, it really requires an extraordinary amount of commitment, interaction, dedication, and enormous effort in order to make a program like this successful. And so thanks to all of you, and particularly to Fabrice, who has been the leader of this revolution for such a long time, and he holds it all together and has expanded it into the greatness that it is. So thank you. Dealing with parents when they come in, I understand the need and the desire that they have to create this beautiful program for their school. And of course, they understand the power and the value of bilingualism for their children and for the children within the school community. When they come to the school, they do have to come and present to us the understanding of what it takes to create a program like this. They have to come and present data to us. They have to come and present a commitment to the work. They have to understand what it's like to bring a new program into a school that has never had this before. it's very easy to say that we're going to do this and that and the other thing, but of course they need to be able to demonstrate that they can do that. So a principal really does need to bring them in, bring them on board. And I think that that's a process. It's really a process for everyone to understand and believe that this is what's in the best interest of that school. Because remember, these parents are coming from other communities, from other neighborhoods. They're coming into my school saying, we want to come in and we want to do this. We were fortunate in PS 84 because we already had a Spanish dual language program, which was a pioneer program from back in the 1980s. So it was easier for us to add on the French program to that because we had a lot of these systems in place, the organization in place to be able to do some of that work. In a school that doesn't already have that presents an enormous obstacle in order to get everyone to understand that bringing a new program into a school is going to be value added in many ways, but is going to create different types of opportunities and different types of obstacles in order for it to be successful. I will give one really big piece of advice to parents. And I know that you're all doing all of the things that have been prescribed and described. When you do get into a school and the program is about to begin and it opens up, there has to be an understanding about the equity of this program and how it balances with the other programs and the other ethnicity groups that are already existing in that school. So we understand, and all the dual language parents understand about diversity and the value of diversity. They understand about investing in a program and how they're going to do it. But we also have to broaden that to scale to the entire school and the rest of the school population as to how this program is going to be value added to what's already existing and to what's already happening within that school and that community. In terms of resources, they have to be shared. In terms of the cultural attributes, they have to be shared. Without bringing all of that into the entire school building, it's going to create the tensions that we don't want to create. And it's a very, very careful step-by-step process in order to ensure that it's accepted by everyone, it's embraced by everyone, and everyone is on the same page in order to ensure that it's successful.
Let's go to Sandy, because and Sandy created the first Japanese dual language program in New York. And we heard from the parents behind the programs during the first webinar, which people can watch. It's online. But Sandy, what kind of partnership did you build with this group of mothers, actually mothers, right? 5 mothers who came to you one day and said, okay, we want to create New York City's first Japanese dual language program. Can you do it?
Well, at first, when the parents approached me, they approached me through an email. And they were very organized in their email. They listed their proposal. They were very specific. And they just wanted an invitation to the school. I thought it was a hoax. I nearly deleted the email. And something told me in my spirit, you know what? What do you have to lose? I was struggling with a school that I inherited that needed to be reinvented. And my enrollment was declining. I had under 200 students in a pre-K to 5 school, and I was being threatened with a charter school moving into the building, which was already co-located with, at the time, it was the Brooklyn Latin School. And so I called the superintendent. I let our superintendent know that some parents had reached out to me, and I was intrigued by their proposal, and I wanted to host their visit. And that was the beginning of our first meeting together. I have to say I was very fortunate by the foundational group of parents who came to meet me. They were extremely organized. And I have to give you the credit, Dr. Jumont, because they expressed to me that they had been working with you behind the scenes, following your roadmap to know exactly what to bring to me. The parents they introduced me to spreadsheets of the parents' contact information, where the families lived, in proximity to the school, outside of the school district. All specific contact information. They also provided information of the children who were English proficient that wanted to be part of the program, and also information in reference to the children who English was their new language. So for me, that was the Japanese students. And they brought a tremendous amount of support, already established relationships with the Japan Foundation on both coasts, Los Angeles and New York, and also the Japanese consulate on both coasts, Los Angeles and New York. And they came to the school, they interviewed me, they wanted to know what the philosophy of teaching and learning was at our school. They wanted to know what my philosophy was as far as working with key stakeholders at the school, which involve families and the students and the staff. And they wanted to see what it was about, if what I was saying was in fact true. And they, after that initial visit, they visited our school numerous times and conducted walkthroughs. I hosted walkthroughs with them. So it became a real collegial partnership where I was totally open and transparent and enthusiastic and passionate about their proposal. And I involved them in every aspect of my school. I invited them to school leadership team meetings. I invited them to PTA meetings. I invited this group to get involved in every aspect of my school and connected them to the key stakeholders, because I didn't want to create a segregated school within a school. And I wanted to be respectful of our foundational families. And I wanted a respectful integration of all the cultures and respecting the diversity that was already at place at our school. So before we launched the program, these 5 foundational parents were already well established at our school community. And they got to know all of the key stakeholders. And I think that by doing that, as some of my colleagues said earlier, that prevented a lot of issues that could come up as a result of parents, who have been at the school community for many years, perhaps questioning, who are these people? They're coming to our school to take over. They're coming from a whole different background or socioeconomic status. We already feel disenfranchised as it is and gentrifying East Williamsburg. Now they're coming into the school to take over. So bridging the community together, and also making sure that the first class was truly diverse and gave opportunities for the children who normally wouldn't have access to a program like this was critical. It was critical. And that collegial collaborative partnership with the families is what really strengthened a strong start to the program despite the obstacles. It wasn't peaches and cream with the DOE. I will say that. The DOE pushed back a lot on us starting the program, but I had a superintendent who was supportive, who encouraged me, and I had the power of the parents behind me. And the DOE got the message, and we started the program.
And this is not a Japanese neighborhood, correct? And this is not, and you're not Japanese either,
no,
correct?
I am bilingual, Spanish bilingual. I was an L when I started in school, elementary school. So for me personally, the power of bilingualism is relevant because I am bilingual, like many of us on the call.
And Robin and Jean, tell us a little bit about the power of bilingualism, because this is something, it's good to hear it from principals sometimes. Robin, go ahead first, and then Jean.
Okay.
In our school, we had 3 languages because we had French, Spanish, and English. And so it was just extraordinary to walk into classrooms and hear these conversations in multiple languages. And so what happened after a while was some of the students who were in the French program or the Spanish program, the parents would come to me and say, could we now have our children learn the third language that's already going on, which in an elementary school was almost impossible to do. So they wanted to become trilingual. As a result of seeing the benefits of already learning two languages.
But
And
Jean,
so it
Jean,
just became...
Jean will confirm that, I think, because this is what he's building on his end.
Sure.
Trilingualism is possible. Maybe it's no longer the bilingual revolution. We have to change the name to the trilingual revolution.
But first, I must also say that the need of the school sometimes is driven by the school data. But with that, very often, as we are speaking about bilingual or different languages, people have a fear that it will somewhat minimize the work that needs to be done to move the school. Au contraire, what needs to be seen is that the power of bilingualism maximizes the achievement of youngsters who are receiving the type of instruction that dual language provides. So the power of bilingual lies on keeping up with the struggle of providing the right type of instruction. And that I know my colleagues out there are striving to make that known in all programs. We have research to support it. It is not, there is no reason for one to have a fear of bringing such program to their buildings. It only enriches the school.
I agree.
I'll go back to the parents, Maria, and then Takat. What kinds of advice can you give parents who are beginning this initiative? And before you answer, I want to tell all the audience here, please type your questions in the chat room, and I'll take a look at it now and again and throw in your questions in the conversation. But Maria, in a minute or so, what kind of advice can you give our parents? Good.
I would say like keep on pushing, because like as I said, my daughter is graduating senior right now and she's bilingual, and I wasn't successful in creating a high school program, so she went in the mainstream high school, and we saw the difference. And I also saw the difference how she thinks. And that was actually very amazing, because our bilingual kids she went from kindergarten to 8th grade for bilingual education, and that type of education taught her to think. That's, I think, the most like valuable asset that she's got, besides like knowledge and languages and like culture. So she learned how to think. Her brain is different, and I see it right now, and I really feel like my effort worth it. So my advice is like, be organized, like get more people on your side, because when you're actually able to bring the message clearly, so people fall in love. So like keep on pushing, get more friends, get more supporters, and like be successful.
Sorry, are you calling on me?
Oh, sorry, I muted myself. Oh dear. Go ahead, Takat. Yeah.
Right. So I think, as folks have said before, for me, the top line points for parents seeking to launch a dual language program are organize, and be organized. It's going to take a lot of work, whether it's finding parents or finding the school and or lobbying with the Department of Education. It takes work, many hours over a long period of time. At PS84, it was extreme. The launch was extremely compressed. I think that's unusual, right? It was less than 12 months, sort of terrifying, from idea to launching a kindergarten and a first grade. But even after that, we were still doing a lot of work to, help, find, keep sustaining till the word really got out to the larger community, keep bringing in parents of Francophone children. And that doesn't, for French, it's much more than one country. And I'm sure that's true with many other languages too. But so broadly reaching out, really organizing, rolling up your sleeves and getting ready to work, and find that principal who's going to be your partner and your champion.
Sylvia, do you have something you could give to others? And then before you answer, I see there's one question I want you to start thinking, all of you, about that question. It's about starting dual language program in small cities, not large cities, and how do you build support from people in small cities to build dual language programs? I'll go back to you after that on the question, but go back to Sylvia with what kind of advice would you give families, parents at this early stage?
I think what helped me the most was reaching out to a lot of people that are on this call right now, on this panel, learning from parents that have been through the process, because you always get the insights and you don't make the same mistakes that others did, or you're aware of what's going to happen. And we also need to look at this, as you always call it, the bilingual revolution. We need to make sure that we also get involved in the politics to make these changes, that we do not have to have the same discussions over and over about what is an ELL, and that the overall idea of what does bilingualism mean for the children is the key question, and not do you bring sufficient children, or do you meet the data, the key data. So I think aligning with others, listening to others, learning from others who have done that. And what I just thought, we didn't speak about these two things. What we did, we organized play dates in our community to form the groups, because people were hesitant to go to a school where they didn't know people. And if you look into the schools that have not that many people, some people are scared going there because they're like, why should I go to a school that nobody else wants to go to? But if you go as a bigger group and you form yourselves and you find friends, it's much easier to drive projects like that. And
that's good. I think it's actually a very important part, that the friendship that has been formed with parents within the core groups. This is something that have been helping those initiatives.
This community effort. And the third thing that I was just having in mind was, I forgot it.
I cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was just, I think, building this community. Well, I think this is enough said. It's a gift, and we all are very thankful that you helped us on that road. But I think there are others that can share some other thoughts on this.
Anju,
and if I remember it, I will lift my arm.
We'll go back. Yeah, so Anju, it's a similar approach as well. You had play dates and small groups of parents, and this is where you're building your initiatives.
Yes, and I'm also following your roadmap that you have spoken about at the very first meeting that we had. And so I like to follow roadmaps because I don't, if the wheel has already been invented, why reinvent it, basically. So I've been fastidiously trying to follow the roadmap, the guidelines, and trying to build a community, and also at the same time researching schools and trying to find contacts with the Korean consulate and embassies and the Korean Council in New York. So thank you for all the hard work that you've already done, and you've set out the roadmap for parents like me to follow and make it easier.
Thank you. Sylvia, Did your third point come back?
Yes, the trilingual approach, because this is actually how we got into our school in the end. They already had a Spanish bilingual program, and by selling another language as a USP to them, this got us in, because the main group didn't have anything to lose when we came, because their children had an additional benefit. So maybe, and we discussed that earlier, schools that have learned already how advantageous it is to have and host a bilingual program might be more willing to welcome you. But then there's always the space issue and the capacity issue. However, this is a really good, maybe it's a neighboring school and that's a good exchange. I was just thinking of how you can start it and what are different aspects that we haven't discussed that much. That's it.
Thank you. Katja, will you keep on pushing?
Yes, we will keep on pushing, and it's very important to know for new parents who want to start that, to know from the beginning that it may take a lot of effort and it may take long, so don't get frustrated. Know that see it as a long-term, maybe a long-term goal. And it's important to involve as many parents as possible in the process, because you fight together, and that's more bearable when you have to go through all these conflicts sometimes with the DOE, as us, or the superintendent. And yes, one can push the other to stay on the goal.
I want to go to our Hortense questions here, because she says, how do you build support from people who might not understand the benefits of dual language immersion? And she says, I'm in Idaho. The first question she asked was, how do you build a dual language program in a small city? Perhaps maybe the principals can help us answer that question. Is this about being in a big city? Can this be started in other places? Do you have advice to give? Jean. Oh, hold on, let me unmute your mic. Go ahead.
I'm thinking from those who are coming from small cities, think of enrichment. It doesn't have any barriers. It's a matter of gathering the interesting parties together and initiate that dialogue, because you may think that you don't have the resource that's available, but as long as you're about to reach out to other folks out there, you'll see you might have plenty around you that you aren't aware of. And I remember when I was in the Bronx working with my parents, and I later on found out that I could reach out to Fabrice. Let me tell you, resources did come my way, and I was able to have, as small as the program started, it began small, but it got bigger because the resources were available, because we reached out for it. And keep up at that, because it's by not trying at all, which will be the failure.
Robin, Sandy? Okay, Robin, let me unmute you. Sorry, try again.
I agree, of course, with Gene, with everything that he said. But I also would like to add that just because it's a small city doesn't mean that there aren't diverse communities there and people who really are looking for something new and for something different in terms of educating their children and learning a new culture. And I think something we didn't talk a lot about that might need another webinar is about how the shifting of the cultures in the school create such vibrant school community. And I think that that's something that every town, every city, every community could benefit from, that as something that would add value and changing views and perspectives and broaden everyone's mindsets and thinking in a new way that would be beneficial to all.
Yeah, Sandy, you have any last thoughts?
Yes, I agree with my colleagues, and I think that just thinking about what activities what events you could possibly host at the school to bring everyone together so that they could see the true value and power in diversity. And sometimes it's because people are just not aware. They just don't know. And it could be a little scary and intimidating for people when they're not familiar with other cultures. But you'll be surprised. There's much more than we have in common than the differences. And when you create a platform to really showcase that, I think that that would really begin to help everyone see the power of this inclusive dynamic that dual language programs bring to a community.
Thank you, everyone. And again, you are my heroes. I applaud you for what you have done, what the things you're doing to change our schools, our communities. So I applaud you. This is actually how we applaud on Zoom. This is what I found out. But thank you all for coming to this webinar. We will have another final webinar in 2 weeks from now, on the 26th of May, about what happens when you create those programs and what are the steps when you actually have convinced a school principal and a school committee. So this is for later, but for now, thank you all for joining us. You're wonderful. I wish you all success. Those who are still doing those programs, we're looking at Katya and Anju. Don't give up. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. And we will succeed. Thank you all. Merci. Au revoir.
Thank you very much.
Bientôt.
Thank you.